All right, we are going to go ahead and talk about the comparison test from Chapter 9. So essentially what we're going to do is kind of infer some sort of other series we can compare this one to in order to infer whether or not this specific series will either converge or diverge. So in order to do that, we're going to select a couple things. So what I'm going to do is take some a sub n. Let a sub n be what we are currently looking at. 1 over n to the fifth plus 3. Now, what we want to do is essentially compare this to something different, right? And so what we can say is, well, we know that n to the fifth plus 3, what's underneath that in that fraction there, is greater than n to the fifth. We're adding 3. It has to be some kind of bigger number. And this implies that this fraction right here has to be less than just the fraction 1 over n to the fifth, right? This kind of ratio, essentially, or this inequality shifts as we look at each side, right? If we turn them into fractions, then, for example, like 1/3 would be less than 1/2, right? So we end up with this inequality that tells us that what we started with, this a sub n, is less than 1 over n to the fifth, something that we just figured out with our inequality, right? So because a sub n, which is what we, like I said, just came up with, is less than 1 over n to the fifth, that's going to imply for us that a sub n is between 0 and 1 over, n to the fifth power. So when we look at this, now that we know that, because we already know that this series right here that we just kind of are comparing to, 1 over n to the fifth, we already know that this converges. So because our a sub n that we already kind of let equal, we let this exist, because our a sub n, the series we started with, is between 0 and then a convergent series, that means that our series, the one that we're looking at, 1 over n to the fifth plus 3, has to converge. So looking at the comparison test, selecting something to let our a sub n equal what we originally have, and then figuring out, well, what kind of makes sense for us to compare that to. Some series that we already know either converges or diverges will then tell us, again, because we're between 0 and that value, that if that series converges, then we diverge. If that series diverges, then we diverge. All right, thank you for watching.